Welcome back everybody to another tier list video. You guys showed a ton of support and seemed to really enjoy the video I made ranking every team heading into this upcoming season. I got a lot of comments saying you wanted me to continue these tier list videos, so that's exactly what I'm going to do today. And as you can tell by the title and thumbnail, we're going to be ranking every NHL team's starting goaltender heading into this season in 5 different categories. We have elite, great, good, average, and below average. Now I do have a feeling this could be a controversial video to some because it's actually kind of hard to rank goaltenders. Their numbers vary so differently from season to season. For the veteran goaltenders that have been around a while, I'm going to try to base it off of like a 3-year sample size, like kind of the average of their numbers in the past 3 seasons. But obviously I can't do that for every goaltender, examples being Jake Ottinger, Jeremy Swayman, Ville Husso, those kinds of goaltenders who don't have that many years under their belt, have only played 1 or 2 seasons in the NHL. For those guys, it is obviously going to be heavily based off of this past season and what we've saw from them so far. So take this list with a grain of salt. Try not to get too angry at it. It's just for fun. And as always, I will leave a link to this tier list down below so you guys can go make one for yourself, screenshot it, tag me in it on Twitter, whatever you want to do. Starting things off with the Minnesota Wild starting goaltender Marc-Andre Fleury. And this is actually kind of a tough one to start off because, like I said, with veterans, trying to base it off a 3-year sample size, I would say this past season Fleury was average with the Blackhawks and then good with Minnesota. But then the year before that, Fleury, you could probably make the case he was elite. I mean, he literally won the Vezina Trophy as league's best goaltender. I'm going to say at this point in Fleury's career, I can confidently say he's still good. Obviously, he's 37, but I'm not quite sure if I can put him in great. Maybe I'll change that a little bit later, but for right now, I'm going to put Marc-Andre Fleury in the good category. Next up, we have UC Saros, who I firmly believe is one of the most underrated goaltenders in the National Hockey League, was a Vezina Trophy finalist this past season with the Nashville Predators. Huge reason why they made the playoffs. I think he played like north of 65 games or something crazy like that. I'm definitely going to go ahead and put UC Saros in the great category. You could probably make the case that he could be in elite, maybe if he has another season like the one that he just had, but for me right now, I think I'm only putting 2 goaltenders in elite. You guys probably know which ones they are. Next up, we have Jacob Markstrom of the Calgary Flames. I'm going to go ahead and put him next to UC Saros in the great category. Markstrom was actually the runner-up to Igor Shesterkin for the Vezina Trophy this past season. Just a fantastic year for Markstrom. His first year in Calgary, I would definitely say, was a little bit shaky at times, but overall, I would say he was still fine. And then the year before that, his final season with the Canucks, he was great as well. So I definitely think he belongs here with Saros. Next up, we have Jake Ottinger, starting goaltender for the Dallas Stars. Just got himself a new 3-year, $12 million deal not long ago. I think I'm going to go ahead and put him in good for now. I feel like it would be a little premature to put him in great with the likes of Saros and Markstrom. There's definitely recency bias there when talking about Jake Ottinger because the last time we saw him play, he put on one of the greatest performances, I would say, by a goaltender in playoff history in a single series. He was unbelievable in that first round matchup against Calgary, but I don't just want to base this off one 7-game series, right? I'm kind of looking at his first 2 regular seasons as a whole where his numbers were good, but not great, so I'm putting him in good for now, but I do think, by the end of this upcoming season, there's a strong possibility he'll be up there as one of the better goaltenders in the league. Next up, we have Islanders starter Ilya Sorokin. Maybe it's a little bit premature, but I am putting him in the great category. In the 2 NHL seasons we've saw from Sorokin so far, he has been one of the absolute best goaltenders in the league. Just had a .925 save percentage this past season. I think this is a guy who year in, year out is going to be in that Vezina Trophy conversation. Eventually, I honestly think he could get up here, but we'll see. For now, I'm putting him in great. Next up, we have Mackenzie Blackwood of the New Jersey Devils. First couple seasons in the NHL showed a lot of promise, and then the past 2 seasons, very underwhelming. For right now, I'm going to put him in the average tier. He's got the potential. We've seen him be good in the past, but can he get back to that level? We're going to have to wait and see. Next up, we have Connor Hellebuyck. I'm definitely going to put him in the great category along with Saros, Markstrom, and Sorokin. One-time Vezina Trophy winner, multiple-time finalist for the award. Definitely feel like you can make a case that he should be up here in the elite category. I feel like before Shesterkin really burst onto the scene, it was kind of Vasilevsky and Hellebuyck, battling for who's the best goaltender in the league. Hellebuyck did look human this past season. His numbers weren't at the elite level that we're used to, and I know the defense in front of him sucks, but still, you look at goals saved above expected, not anywhere near where Hellebuyck's usually is. So that is why I have Hellebuyck in the great category for now and not elite. Next up, we have Ville Husso. So this tier list maker thinks Husso is going to be the Red Wings starter over Nedeljkovic. I'm kind of in the same boat as well. I'm honestly not really quite sure where to put Ville Husso. I don't even think Ville Husso has 60 NHL games under his belt. His first season was a little bit shaky where he was back up to Jordan Binnington. This past season, obviously his numbers were great. You could make the case he was a top 10 goaltender in the league. I'm going to put Ville Husso in the good category for now because I definitely don't think you can say that he's ahead of the likes of Fleury and Ottinger and on the same level as these guys. One more season like the one that he just had, especially if he's able to replicate that success with the Red Wings, who are a much worse defensive team and just overall team than the Blues, then maybe you could start to think about putting up there, but for right now I definitely think you just have to put Husso in good. Next up we have Anaheim Ducks starter John Gibson. Been struggling the past 3 seasons for sure. His numbers aren't anywhere near, what we got used to seeing from John Gibson, the first 4 or 5 seasons of his career. If I was making this list back in 2017, probably putting John Gibson up there in the elite category, but it's not 2017. It's 2022. I'm putting him in good for now. I don't think you can say he's on the level of a Hellebuck or a Sorokin or a Markstrom or a Saros when you look at the numbers he's put up the past 3 seasons. The next goaltender on this list is Robin Lehner. Obviously, he's not going to play this upcoming season, so he's technically not Vegas' starter right now, so we're not going to rank him. We're going to move on to Sergei Bobrovsky, who has spent 3 seasons exactly as a member of the Florida Panthers. He was much better this past year in Florida than he was in his first 2 seasons with the team after signing that massive deal. I want to say his performance as a whole since becoming a member of the Florida Panthers has been average, but I should, lean a little bit more heavily on this past season since we are ranking goaltenders heading into this upcoming season. So for right now, I'm going to put Sergei Bobrovsky in good. I don't think it's fair to say Mackenzie Blackwood is on his level, so that's kind of why I'm not putting him in average. I might revise things and change it up a little bit at the end, but for right now, I think I'm going to put Bob in good because he was definitely good this past year, and obviously for the majority of his career, he's been great, but right now I'm going to put him in good. Next up, we have Thatcher Demko of the Vancouver Canucks. I'm actually kind of torn on this one. I want to put him up here in great, but I don't know if I'm ready to put him in a tier with the likes of Hellebuck, Sorokin, Markstrom, and Saros, but I also feel like he's better than Bobrovsky. I think I can confidently say that. Better than Gibson right now. I think one change that I have to make is actually putting Blackwood down to below average. I mean, what he said, like a sub 900 save percentage in each of the past 2 seasons, so I'm putting Blackwood in below average for now. Obviously, he has the potential, I think, to be a good, above average starting goaltender, but right now, below average for Blackwood, so let's make that change. And then I think we're good. I'll leave Thatcher Demko in the good category here, but it's like teetering between good and great. I'm a big fan of Thatcher Demko, and I definitely think he's better than most of the goaltenders in this tier. I don't know, this is really difficult to do. I do want to speed things up though, because I feel like I'm taking really long and dragging out my explanations, so let me run through some of the names here quickly where I know where I'm going to put them. Vasilevsky, elite. Feel like I don't have to explain that. Igor Shesterkin, elite. Feel like I don't have to explain that one either. Those are the only 2 goaltenders I'm going to put in the elite category. I knew that coming into this. Next, we'll go Matt Murray. I'm putting him down here in below average. 2 of the last 3 seasons of his career, he's at a sub 900 save percentage. Was definitely a little bit better this past season. Had stretches where he actually looked really good, but I think as a whole, the past 3 seasons, he's definitely been a below average starter. Even spent some time in the American Hockey League this past season, actually. Next, we'll go Kirill Vejmelka, another goaltender I'm going to put in below average. I mean, he definitely stole some games for Arizona, had some fantastic individual performances this past season, but his year as a whole, his numbers weren't great. Bless his heart, he did his best on a poor team, but he's definitely a below average starter. And you know what? I think I have to move Gibson down to average. It pains me to do this because he was one of the best goaltenders in the league for such a long time, but I literally said coming into this video, it's going to be based off of the past 3 seasons, and his numbers the past 3 seasons as a whole have literally been just that. They have been average, so I have to put Gibson there. It pains me to do this because I love Carter Hart, but I gotta put him in below average. If Blackwood's there, I feel like Hart has to be. A similar situation to Blackwood, showed so much promise, his first couple seasons, and then the last 2, especially the year before last, he was probably the worst starter in the league. It obviously doesn't help that his team in front of him defensively is atrocious, but I'll mention this stat again. Goals saved above expected is a great stat to isolate goaltenders' performances, and it won't factor in how bad the defense is, and Carter Hart's goals saved above expected the past couple seasons has been terrible. Obviously, I think it goes without saying, I think he has the potential to be up here and good, but for now, below average. Jeremy Swayman, this is another tough one, kind of like, Ville Husso, Jake Ottinger. Really small sample size for Jeremy Swayman. Only about 50 NHL games under Swayman's belt, but he's looked good in that sample size. I feel like I kind of have to put him in the tier with Ottinger and Husso, so I'm going to put him in good. Man, this is just so difficult. I'm going to make some more changes here. I'm moving Thatcher Demko up there to great, don't care. And then Sergei Bobrovsky's coming down here to average with John Gibson. Next we have Peter Mrazek, we'll go with him. I think I'm going to put him in below average with these guys. Obviously, really terrible season with the Toronto Maple Leafs. The year before that with Carolina, he was good, but it was in a small sample size. Then the year before that, he was meh. So he's had a really up and down career. I think I'm just going to go ahead and say he's a below average starter. Next up, we have Jack Campbell. I'm going to go ahead and put him in the good tier. Ever since becoming a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is when he kind of became a starting goaltender for the first time in his career, he has been good. At some points great, but I feel like as a whole, his career as a starter, I think he's just been good. We'll do Freddie Anderson next, and I feel like I have to put him up there in great. Just had a Vezina caliber season. Sure, the prior 2 years with the Leafs weren't fantastic, but I feel like injuries had a lot to do with that. When he was healthy at his best in Toronto, he was still one of the best goalies in the league, and I feel like we saw him get back to that level this past season, so Anderson is great for me. Next up, I got two guys I'm going to put in below average, but it's literally just because they've never even been anything close to starters in their career before. Neither Kaapo Kähkönen or Eric Comrie have had a season in their careers where they've played 25 or more games, or more than 25 games, I should say. Each of these guys has had stints in their careers for, a span of games where they looked pretty good, but they've both also had stints in their careers for a span of games where they've looked terrible. So I don't even know where to rank those guys. So for now, I feel like it's only fair I put them in below average because this is going to be their first seasons where they're playing a decent amount of games. We'll go Darcy Kemper next. I'm going to put him in the good category, I think. You could maybe make the case he should be up here in great, but I don't think he's quite on the level of those guys. He just had a fantastic regular season with the Avalanche. Obviously, recency bias makes people kind of underrate him a little bit, I feel like, because he wasn't fantastic in the playoffs. A real good goaltender, though, so I definitely think that is where he belongs. Some interesting names left here for sure. We'll do Jonathan Quick next. I think he belongs in average. He's not the goaltender he once was, obviously. Did bounce back a little bit this past season and wasn't terrible, so I feel like at this point in Jonathan Quick's career as a starting goaltender, this is where he belongs, in the average tier. We'll do Philip Grubauer next, and this one's tough because basically for his entire career, he has always been good to really good. He only ever had one bad season, and that was this past season with Seattle. It's just that one bad season was literally miserable. He was probably the worst starter in the league this past year. You also have to remember he has been on a good team pretty much his entire career until this past season with Seattle as well, so maybe he's just not a goaltender who can carry you and steal you games and stuff like that. Just based off last season, since it was so bad, I feel like I gotta put him in the average tier. Maybe that's a little unfair. We'll go Tristan Jarry up next. Definitely gonna put him in the good category. Just had a great year with the Penguins, and I feel like he's just always been good enough for them. Never really one of the best goaltenders in the league, but just always very solid, so I definitely think he belongs in good. I'm also gonna go ahead and put Jordan Binnington in the good category. Sure, this past regular season for him was really shaky, kind of lost his starting gig to Ville Husso in the regular season, got it back in the playoffs until he got injured, of course, but you look at Binnington's career as a whole, which hasn't been long, I think he does belong in the good category. I would say he definitely is a little bit above average. We'll go with Elvis next. This past season was really the first year in his career where he took on a really big workload, and I would say he did a pretty solid job, and his numbers in the 2 seasons prior, which obviously were shortened seasons, they were cut off a little bit, his numbers in those years were good, so I feel like he does kind of belong in the good category. I feel like this video is just a mess, to be honest. I feel really confident about who I have in elite and great. Like, I feel good about all my picks up here, but I feel like everything below that, like good, average, and below average, is just a mess, so we'll try to finish this out, though. We got Cam Talbot next. In each of the past 3 seasons, he's been good, so I feel like he belongs in here, but honestly, I feel like I have too many goaltenders in good and not enough in average. I'm probably going to revise things at the end and maybe make a couple of changes, but let's finish this out first. We got one goaltender left, and that is Pavel Francouz, and it's another guy that I feel like has to be put in good. I mean, he's like a career .920 save percentage goaltender. I'm pretty sure he didn't lose a single game in their Stanley Cup final run. Obviously, we've never seen Pavel Francouz be a full-time starter, but we've seen a pretty good sample size in his career as a whole, so I don't know. He's in good for me as well, but again, I feel like I have too many in here. Let me revise things. I think I am going to make a couple changes now that we're done. I just looked over it for literally like 5 minutes almost, and I can't really find anything I want to change. Like, ranking goaltenders is so difficult for me. So again, like I said at the beginning of the video, try not to get too angry at this if I didn't rank your favorite goaltender where you want him to be ranked. This was just for fun. Take it with a grain of salt. If you guys enjoyed this video, which I hope you all did, please be sure to leave it a like. That's the best way to show your support and to let me know that you want to see more tier list videos like this. Like I said at the beginning, I really want to know what your list would look like, so link for this tier list will be at the top of the description. Finish your list, take a screenshot, send it to me on Twitter or something like that. I want to see what you guys are thinking. If this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you all soon.